Hey guys, welcome back to another Mastermind content video. I'm Richard O'Dale and today we're going to be discussing something that touches every single one of us, and that is vulnerability. Now, vulnerability is that feeling of being exposed, uncertain, at risk, or emotionally raw. Now, we often associate vulnerability as a weakness, but what if I told you it's actually a crucial part of psychological and emotional development? Because vulnerability is an emotional state that you experience when you feel uncomfortable. It's a natural reaction when you step into the unknown because the ego doesn't feel comfortable with uncertainty. And that's because the ego likes certainty because it has programs. These programs inform you what to do in every situation. When the ego doesn't have this information, there's uncertainty because it doesn't know what is going to happen. It doesn't know what to do. So this is why you have anxiety and fear, sometimes low self-esteem and a lack of confidence. And other times you'll be so overcome by stress that the ego becomes more and more uncertain about its ability to cope with your environment. You may also be familiar with this feeling when you have to have a conversation with somebody that makes you feel uncomfortable. So, what is it that is actually making you feel uncomfortable? Now, it may be something that you've done wrong and you need to admit, and that means you taking accountability for something that you were at fault for. Now, if you have low self esteem, you may not be able to admit accountability and take responsibility for your own actions because you have a poor self image and a fragile emotional structure. You may also feel vulnerable when you're in a situation where you're at risk of being rejected or making a mistake and feeling like a fool. Or you feel awkward speaking to people you want to date, and indeed when you enter a relationship, you're naturally going to feel vulnerable because you want to be accepted by the other person you are attracted to. So if you have emotional insecurity, a lack of self-love and a lack of self-acceptance, you become desperate to fit in and to be accepted, so then you naturally feel anxious and vulnerable. So basically, vulnerability is any situation which makes you feel awkward because you have to share your thoughts and fears or risk emotional pain or admit that you are struggling because you feel like a failure. Now, Andrew Huberman says that if you don't have food in your fridge, it's a sign of being vulnerable. I'm not quite sure what he means, but I basically don't have a lot in my fridge because I want to feel comfortable with being vulnerable. But the question we've got to ask is, why are we vulnerable in the first place? Now, that will look differently for everybody, but researchers have found that it stems from an innate need for connection, belonging, and acceptance, and a fear of not getting these basic human needs. Now, from an evolutionary standpoint, we're basically wired to belong to a group, our tribe, because our ancestors depended on the tribe for survival. It was very, in those days, it was very difficult to survive outside the group. So if you were banished from the tribe and sent on your own way, there was a constant risk of potential danger. Now, there are, of course, physical risks in the world that we know today, but that doesn't seem to bother most people. I mean, we still get in our cars or board boats, trains, and planes and go about our lives as freely as possible. So, how much risk are most people taking these days? How often do you back away when you feel uncomfortable? Are you living in your bubble of comfort, or are you striving and thriving by pursuing your dreams? I'll leave a message in the comments and share your inspirational stories about how you are thriving and how you broke through that moment of feeling uncomfortable and how you made yourself feel safe by being vulnerable. Because vulnerability is felt on an emotional level, and for people with a fragile emotional structure, the fear of being rejected, judged, or misunderstood can be devastating. And that's where the discomfort of vulnerability shows up. It's our mind's way of protecting us from emotional pain when we have a low self image. However, when you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you open the door to personal growth and create opportunities to develop deeper and more meaningful connections with others. So think about it. When somebody shares something personal with you, doesn't it make you feel close to them? That's because vulnerability fosters trust, empathy, and compassion. It's the foundation of authentic relationships. But the benefits of vulnerability go beyond your relationships with others. It's also about the relationship that you have with yourself. When you embrace vulnerability, you permit yourself to be imperfect. And it's important to accept that it's okay to make mistakes if you're willing to learn from them. You shouldn't expect yourself to have all the answers and all the skills and the qualities that you need to nail your intention the first time of asking. Win some, draw some is a fact of life. So embrace vulnerability because it's the gateway to personal growth, and it's actually a quality of the hero archetype, the part of your personality that gives you the impetus and the motivation to take uncomfortable action. Now, the hero is an important archetype to integrate into the conscious personality when you are addressing a fear of failure or a fear of making mistakes. This feeling of vulnerability. It is the hero who pushes you out of your comfort zone. Now, this is an energy that prompts you to engage with life, to take risks, and to pursue your intentions with the intent of trying, even if you risk failing. You just have to be prepared to fail. Now, psychologically speaking, vulnerability challenges the ego because the ego feels as though it's not strong enough, it's not capable enough, or that it doesn't have the control that you need. And like I mentioned before, that's because the ego doesn't have the programs to help you overcome challenges and conflicts. This is where the growth mindset is required for us to move beyond the programming of the ego and to develop aspects of the personality that have been repressed. We have to give the buried aspects of our personality life. So to bring parts of your personality that have been buried back to life, you need to step outside of your bubble of comfort and discover which archetypes will step in to show you the way. Now allow your ego to let go and simply go with the flow. Now embrace the possibility of failure, rejection and humiliation, because it's in these moments of vulnerability that we truly discover our strengths, resilience and our capacity to change, to transform our lives. And that's a stronger position to be in than sitting back and not doing anything. So how can you overcome the fear of vulnerability? Well, the answer to that will look different for everybody, but as a general rule, just recognise that vulnerability is not a sign of weakness, but a natural response the ego feels when it does not have a program that enables you to successfully manage your environment. In addition, recognise that taking uncomfortable action is a sign of courage. And you need courage to get you from where you are to where you want to be. So when you do feel moments of vulnerability, just remind yourself that you are choosing to be brave and that by going through with this certain action, it can make you a better person. Now, for some people, courage comes easily, others have to push themselves, whilst some people just can't summon the courage whatsoever. So if you're in this latter group, you will benefit from adopting a healthy, constructive and positive mindset. And one way to do that is to recognise that it's okay to make mistakes. Now, taking action in the first place when you're feeling vulnerable takes a certain amount of bravery because you have a fear of failure. It is that fear that is holding you back. It is the fear that makes you feel vulnerable because you don't feel as though you're good enough. You don't feel as though you have what it takes to overcome this challenge. You don't feel as though you have the right skills, you don't have the right knowledge or the right qualities. And maybe you don't, but you have to develop them in order to overcome this challenge or conflict or resistance that the ego produces by feeling vulnerable. So if you are afraid to make mistakes, then a different perspective to adopt is that making mistakes and learning from them will help you to focus your attention on your intention. You also need to identify what fixed mindset is it that the ego has that is blocking you from moving forward. What is the issue that is preventing you from developing the self? What I mean by this is, what is your automatic responses, impulses and drives? What are your attachments? So the ego needs to be trained on how to deal with your environment, but you can't do that when the ego is controlling your decision making process. And it does that through automatic responses, impulses, drives and attachments. So you need to let go of these egoic drives and allow the power of the self to come forward. This is how we then help repressed parts of our personality come to the light of the conscious mind, the surface of the conscious mind. Because when you give the self more power and control over the ego, you then train your brain to adopt new behaviors. It helps you to build new neural pathways, which then becomes memories, which then become automatic responses. So the automatic responses that you have now, that the ego responds to, are subconscious programs that were developed in your past. In the future, you can develop new subconscious programs which are more healthy, constructive and positive. Because the experiences you have in life are determined by the choices that you make. Now, the ego generally makes choices that are designed to keep you rooted in your bubble of comfort. It is primed for survival. But when you live in survival mode, you play it safe and keep acting out the situations that you are comfortable with. The self, on the other hand, wants you to thrive, and it gives you access to the qualities that you need to face challenges and to overcome them. Now, moreover, the self is the creative part of the brain, and it enables you to see how your failures help you to focus your attention on your intention. Because it helps you to find the solutions that would enable you to overcome challenges, conflicts and resistance by recognizing where you went wrong and then finding the right solution. So the more experiences you are prepared to engage with, the more capable you become of navigating through life successfully. Not only do you learn more about the world and how you fit into it, you connect with other people, develop confidence, you build self-esteem, and you learn how to respect yourself. So vulnerability can be transformed into a state of feeling powerful. It's the birthplace of creativity, innovation and change. Now, when you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you basically open yourself up to a full spectrum of human emotion, which means that you will experience more joy, peace, love, connection and wisdom. So if you think about the most meaningful moments in your life, chances are that they involved some level of vulnerability, right? Whether it was telling somebody that you love them, or taking a leap of faith in your career, or admitting that you needed help from somebody, all these moments shaped you into who you are today. But so were the moments where you avoided opportunities for personal growth, the times that you backed away, the situations that you neglected to encounter because you were afraid, those times also determine the kind of person that you are today. So the next time you feel vulnerable, ask yourself, what are you resisting? And which part of your personality can help you to accomplish your goal? Embrace feeling uncomfortable and act anyway. Lean into it and you will see how you can transform your life. Taking action when you feel uncomfortable is actually a natural part of personal growth. Right guys, I'm going to wrap it up there, but thanks for joining me for this video today, and if you did find it useful then please give it a thumbs up. But also if you feel as though you know somebody that needs to hear this, then please share it with them. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more insights on personal growth, emotional well-being and human nature plus much more. Until next time, take care, be kind to yourself and embrace the power of vulnerability. I'm Richard O'Dale and this is Mastermind Content. Bye bye.